There's a beautiful story about a man who had a precious diamond. Every day, he'd go out and show it to people. Look at this. He'd say, "Isn't it beautiful?" And at first, people praised it. But over time, some grew envious. Some tried to steal it. Some gave opinions that made the man doubt its worth. One day, he looked at the diamond and said, "Is it still beautiful, or have all these voices taken its shine away?" That diamond is your personal life, your dreams, your relationships, your struggles, your quiet prayers at night. And when we begin to share these deeply personal things with just anyone, we risk doing the same, letting people tarnish the shine of what is sacred. We live in a time where oversharing has become a norm. Social media has created this illusion that everything must be public. Our meals, our moments, our minds, and somewhere along the way, even our hearts. But there's a powerful truth. Not everything that is true needs to be told. And not everything that is felt needs to be shared. You see, there are three types of people in life. There are those who listen because they care. There are those who listen because they're curious. And then there are those who listen because they want to use your words against you. The trouble is, we often don't know which one we're talking to until it's too late. Imagine telling someone about a fight you had with your partner only to have them spread it in whispers to others. Imagine sharing your plans and goals with someone only to find they quietly laughed behind your back. Imagine expressing a deep fear or hurt, and instead of comfort, you get comparison or correction. Sometimes the pain we feel isn't from the original experience. It's from how people treated us after we opened up. Like opening a gift only to watch someone trample on it. That's why discretion is wisdom. Even the most beautiful tree doesn't bear fruit all year. It has seasons. Moments of growth that are hidden beneath the soil. Not everything is meant to be exposed. Some things are meant to be nurtured in silence. When we keep our personal life private, we are not being secretive. We are being sacred. We are building a sanctuary within ourselves. A space where our emotions, experiences, and relationships are safe from judgment, jealousy, and misunderstanding. And this doesn't mean you walk through life alone. No, it means you become wise in who you allow into your sacred space. There are people you can confide in. Those who have earned that right through years of loyalty, understanding, and love. But that list is small for a reason. There's a proverb that says, "Don't tell your problems to people." 80% don't care, and 20% are glad you have them. It may sound harsh, but it contains wisdom. Sometimes when we unload our heart in front of others, we feel lighter in the moment, but emptier in the long run. Because when someone doesn't hold your story with reverence, it scars. Your personal life is like a garden. You don't invite everyone to walk through it with muddy shoes. Some will step on your blooming flowers. Others will criticize the way you planted them. Only a few will water it with love and leave it better than they found it. There's power in silence. There's strength in solitude. And there's wisdom in withholding. Ask yourself, why do I want to share this? Do I want advice, validation, or just to be heard? And if the answer is just to be heard, remember, not every ear deserves your voice. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is talk to God instead of people. Cry in prayer instead of in public. Journal it instead of posting it. Speak to your soul instead of strangers. Because peace isn't found in being understood by everyone. It's found in understanding yourself. I met a young man once who had gone through a difficult breakup. He said to me, "I told my friends everything. Every fight, every flaw, every fear. And now that we're back together, they hate her. And I'm stuck in the middle." That's what happens when we let temporary emotions create permanent impressions in other people's minds. When the moment passes, you move on. But they don't. Because they were never emotionally invested, they were only entertained. So be careful. Let people wonder about you. Let them see the smile but not always the struggle. Let them feel your presence without knowing your process. Not out of pride, but out of protection. Privacy is power. Not because you have something to hide, but because you have something to protect. A peaceful life isn't built on how much you share. It's built on how much you preserve. Even the moon hides in darkness before it shines. The seed grows under soil before it blooms, and you too are allowed to grow in silence, evolve in private, and protect your personal journey from public opinion. Don't trade the peace of your soul for the applause of the crowd. The less they know, the less they can ruin. And the more you guard your personal life, the more sacred it becomes. Because in the end, the quiet places of your heart are where your true strength lives. So hold it close. Speak it less. Protect it more. Your life isn't a story for everyone to read. It's a sacred scroll, only meant to be unrolled in front of those who know how to read with love. Let silence be your shield. Let wisdom be your guide. And let peace be the prize for choosing privacy. There's something profoundly powerful about the things we hold close to our heart. Things not shouted from rooftops, not posted on timelines, not passed around in conversations. There's a kind of holiness in keeping certain parts of our lives protected, private, and preserved. And yet, in a world that constantly urges us to share, broadcast, and express everything we feel, think, or do, it becomes easy to forget that not everything sacred was meant to be seen. Your personal life is not a stage. It's not a public gallery for others to browse through and critique. It's more like a temple, quiet, intimate, sacred. It's a space where your real self lives, where your tears fall when no one's watching, where your dreams take shape before they become visible to the world. And when we expose these spaces too freely, we invite the noise of others into the silence of our soul. We invite opinions where only prayers should live. We invite judgment where only love should exist. We allow the sacred to be trampled by the casual. Privacy is not a wall to hide behind. It's a boundary that protects beauty. Imagine walking through a museum where the most valuable painting is displayed in a glass box behind ropes, guarded carefully. Why? Because it's precious. It's not just art, it's legacy, emotion, irreplaceable value. And yet, how casually we throw open the doors of our own inner world to anyone who will listen. How freely we hand over the keys to people who don't even understand the worth of what they're being given. You may think you're being honest. You may believe you're just being vulnerable or real. And yes, there is courage in vulnerability. But there is also wisdom in knowing when to be vulnerable and with whom. Because not every soul that listens is a sanctuary. Some are battlegrounds of their own, unhealed, insecure, or simply careless. They don't mean to hurt you, but they do. They don't plan to misuse your truth, but they do. And by the time you realize it, the damage is already done. The trust you gave becomes gossip. The dream you shared becomes someone else's laughter. The pain you opened up becomes ammunition. Protecting your privacy is not about being distant. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that some parts of your story are still unfolding and need nurturing, not commentary. It's about understanding that your healing doesn't need to be performed on a stage. It can happen in the quiet, behind closed doors, between you and the divine. Privacy is where transformation begins. Because when you are not busy explaining your every move, you're actually listening. you're actually growing. You're allowing your roots to deepen silently, steadily, without the interference of external opinions or premature exposure. Look at the way a seed grows, hidden beneath the soil, unseen by the world. But it's in that privacy, in that unseen space, that it begins to form the strength it will need to break through the surface. If you were to constantly dig it up to show people progress, you'd destroy its chance to grow. You'd kill its potential before it even had a chance to bloom. Your personal life is no different. There's a quiet confidence in those who don't speak too much about their plans, who protect their relationships from too many outside voices, who face their battles in private, emerging stronger, not with a story of every scar, but with a spirit that shows they survived. You don't need to explain everything. You don't owe the world a window into your sacred spaces. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is silence. Not the kind that is cold or withdrawn, but the kind that speaks of depth. The kind that honors the journey you're on. The kind that says, what I'm building is too sacred to be exposed right now. Even your love life, your family matters, your finances, your emotional struggles. These are not headlines for group discussions. They are delicate threads that, when tangled in the hands of too many people, break easily. Privacy gives you the room to handle those threads gently, respectfully, and at your own pace. The more sacred something is, the more protection it requires. And this doesn't mean you shut everyone out. It means you choose wisely. You share wisely. You speak with discernment. You trust those who have shown they are safe. And most importantly, you trust yourself to know when to hold back. In the stillness of privacy, we find the strength to heal, to grow, and to become. In the sacredness of our own guarded space, we give ourselves permission to be authentic, not performative. And that authenticity, nurtured in silence, blooms in time, strong, beautiful, and undisturbed. Privacy isn't about hiding who you are. It's about honoring who you are becoming. Not everyone who listens understands, and not everyone who hears your voice knows what to do with the weight of your words. There's a delicate kind of pain that comes not from the struggle itself, but from telling the wrong person about it. You open your heart hoping for healing, and instead you walk away feeling misunderstood, diminished, or even mocked. That's why learning the art of discernment, of knowing who deserves your voice, is one of the most important lessons in your journey toward peace and maturity. The world is full of ears, but very few are sacred enough to carry your truth with grace. Some people listen because they genuinely care. Others listen because they are curious. And some listen just to gather material for gossip. The difference isn't always obvious at first. People wear masks. They nod, they smile, they even give advice. But intentions don't always match appearances. And the deeper your pain, the more fragile your trust, the more careful you must be with whom you hand over your voice. You are not obligated to explain your story to those who haven't earned the right to hear it. Your voice carries your energy, your past, your vulnerability, your growth. It is not meant to be poured into casual conversations or laid bare before those who merely spectate your life from a distance. When you speak, you're not just releasing sound, you're sharing soul. And not every soul is prepared to receive yours with respect. There's a reason ancient wisdom teaches the power of silence. It's not weakness, it's not secrecy, it's wisdom. Because once words leave your mouth, you can't control how they're interpreted, repeated, or remembered. You might say something in a moment of vulnerability, hoping for comfort, and find yourself the subject of whispered judgment or unwanted advice. Sometimes, The damage caused by misused words doesn't show up immediately. It reveals itself later when the person you confided in suddenly uses your story as leverage or speaks it in circles that you were never meant to be part of. We live in a culture that confuses openness with oversharing. We are taught to believe that vulnerability means telling everyone everything. But true vulnerability is not about exposure. It's about intimacy. It's about knowing who has the emotional maturity, the empathy, and the integrity to hold space for your truth. And sometimes, that person is not outside, it's within. You are often your safest listener. Your journal may be a better audience than your friends. Your prayers may absorb more truth than 100 conversations, because silence doesn't betray you. But careless ears often do. Think about a time you shared something deeply personal with someone and later regretted it. Not because your story wasn't true, but because their response robbed it of its sacredness. Maybe they minimized your pain. Maybe they changed the subject. Maybe they nodded politely and never followed up. Each of these responses leaves a mark, and slowly you begin to pull back, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. You start to realize that your voice is valuable, and it should only be offered where it will be honored. Even in your victories, not every ear deserves your voice. Sharing your progress, your dreams, your blessings, if done in the wrong company, can invite resentment instead of rejoicing. There are those who cannot celebrate you because your growth threatens their stagnancy. There are those who will take your dreams and lace them with doubt. You walk in excited and walk out second, guessing everything. That's the cost of sharing with people who haven't earned the right to hear what matters to you. So choose wisely. Learn to observe before you open up. Listen to how they talk about others, because that's how they'll talk about you. Notice how they respond to your silence. Do they grow impatient, or do they hold space with understanding? Pay attention to how they treat your small truths before you hand them the deeper ones. And most of all, trust that you don't need to be fully known to be fully valued. Sometimes the quiet strength you carry speaks louder than any explanation. Sometimes your presence is enough. You don't need to justify your pain. You don't need to explain your choices. You don't need to unravel every layer of your life to those who haven't shown the capacity to handle even one. Your voice is sacred. Your story is sacred. And when you protect it, you protect yourself. There is peace in holding things close. There is power in reserving your voice for moments and people that truly matter. You don't lose anything by keeping quiet. You gain clarity. You don't fall behind by speaking less. You rise above the noise. Not every ear deserves your voice. And that is not a limitation. That is liberation. It is the freedom to speak when you're ready, to share when it's safe, and to grow in spaces where your silence is understood just as deeply as your words. There's a certain kind of peace that cannot be found in noise, in explanations, or in endless conversations. It lives in the quiet corners of your soul, in those moments when the world falls away, and all that remains is you and the sound of your own breath. Sacred silence is not about absence. It is about presence. It is about tuning out the external chaos to hear the voice within. And in that voice lies your truth, your healing, and your deepest peace. We are constantly surrounded by noise, external and internal, notifications, opinions, conversations, distractions. Everyone has something to say, and everything demands our attention. We begin to believe that speaking more means processing more, that sharing everything we feel means healing faster. But often the opposite is true. Talking too much about our pain doesn't dissolve it. It sometimes deepens it. Speaking about our dreams too early doesn't empower them. It sometimes weakens them. There is wisdom in waiting. There is strength in sacred silence. When you choose silence, you create space. You create a sanctuary inside yourself where your thoughts can settle like dust in still air. In that space, clarity is born. In that stillness, understanding arises. You begin to see your situation not through the distorted lens of panic or opinion, but through the calm lens of perspective. Silence becomes your mirror. It shows you what the noise was hiding. So many of our emotional wounds come from giving too many people access to our inner world. We run from one person to another, retelling our stories, seeking comfort, validation, or solutions. And while sometimes those conversations help, more often they scatter our energy. Every time we speak, we relive the pain. Every time we seek external comfort, we postpone internal strength. Sacred silence teaches us to become our own sanctuary. It tells us, you are enough to sit with this. You are enough to hold this. You are strong enough to find peace without needing a witness. There's a difference between silence that suppresses and silence that sanctifies. One hides, the other heals. Sacred silence is not about ignoring your emotions. It is about listening to them without interruption. When you sit quietly without distraction, you begin to hear the deeper currents beneath the surface. The reasons behind your reactions, the fears behind your frustration, the hopes hidden beneath your pain. You begin to hear your soul whisper truths that the noise never lets you hear. This kind of silence requires courage. It's easy to distract yourself with conversation, to numb yourself with noise. It's harder to sit in the stillness and face what lies beneath. But only in that sacred space can true peace be found. Not the temporary peace that comes from venting or distracting, but the lasting peace that comes from understanding and release. Sometimes the best decision you can make is to stop explaining yourself, to stop narrating every move, to stop handing your feelings over to those who were never meant to carry them. Silence is not a failure to communicate. It is the decision to communicate with yourself first, to sit in the presence of the divine and say nothing at all because nothing needs to be said. Just being there is enough. Just breathing is enough. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to call someone. You don't need to justify what you're going through. Some things are meant to be experienced quietly. Some breakthroughs happen when no one is watching. Some growth occurs in the dark, in silence, like seeds pushing through soil before ever touching the light. There's something sacred about walking through a storm and not announcing it, about feeling pain deeply but choosing to process it in private, about being on a journey and not needing applause for every step. Sacred silence makes you stronger, not because it hides your truth, but because it gives it time to mature. It allows your heart to heal in layers, gently, without pressure. Eventually you will speak. But when you do, it will come from wholeness, not from wound, from understanding, not from reaction, from peace, not from panic. Sacred silence gives your voice back its power. It sharpens your discernment, deepens your wisdom, and purifies your perspective. What once needed to be shouted will no longer need to be said. It will be lived. It will be felt. It will radiate from your presence without you having to explain anything. So don't be afraid of silence. Don't be afraid to keep your personal journey sacred and sealed for a season. Don't mistake stillness for stagnation. Within sacred silence, transformation is quietly at work. And the peace that arises from that silence is not shallow. It's rooted, resilient, and real. It's the kind of peace that stays, even when the noise returns.